Hi guys, welcome to, we're still the Improvement Season podcast. We're not yet revived to stage.
We are, yeah.
We are kind of on that journey, but we haven't got to that leg yet. So we're going to call ourselves still the Improvement Season podcast for you guys to abate any confusion. However, I am with Pascal this week. He is feeling
back.
Somewhat better.
Yeah.
Let us know, where have you been, Pascal? Why have you been skiving?
I was lying in hospital due to the coronavirus.
This is going to split the listeners, Pascal.
Yeah, I know.
Depending on what's happening on when this gets released.
If it's too early. I mean, people overreact once again when it comes to this. Yes, I don't want to play down the fact that people have died due to this, but so do people on a daily basis due to several of other diseases out there. I think from just mosquito bites or stings alone, 3,000 people on a daily basis die, if I'm correct in that assumption. So, I think people are overreacting, but this is just like my opinion. Doesn't dispute the fact that people have been dying though. So, yeah, this is not a cool fact. And everyone who has that it's not really funny, but as you guys may know me by now, my humor is dark. And no, I didn't have the coronavirus. I had the virus of having 2 kids at home who are just like spitting in my face the entire time, which literally happened. Like yesterday, it was just and I think every parent can relate to that. So yesterday was the day where I realized why I am sick the entire time. So the first thing that happened was that Hugo came back from the kindergarten. It's kind of a ritual already. He rings the doorbell. He then says like, okay, can you pick me up from below? I'm walking down and then I'm carrying him up the stairs. While he was sitting on my arm, he looked at me and he was talking to me. And while he was doing that, he was just like literally spitting in my face. Like I could feel it and just like, oh God. Right. And then later on that day, I had Tony on my arm. He's 7 months old. He's coughing at the moment as well. And while he was sitting on my arm, he was looking at me and directly from like 10 centimeters apart was coughing directly in my face. And then later on the day, I'm always like going through another ritual in the evening time when Katie is bringing Tony already in bed. I'm then watching, or I prepare Hugo for bed. So brushing teeth, getting him dressed. Then we watch a video. And after that, we read like 1 or 2 stories. And while we've been reading those stories, he's always asking questions. He was looking at me, and once again, like a couple of centimeters from my face, just literally spitting in my face. And I was just like, okay, this day was just like the symbol of how it is to actually be a parent, and also then, why it is that you're always getting sick. So that was the story, and this is probably also the explanation why I was chronically ill here over the past 4 or 5 months now.
We have a clickbaity title. Pascal has the coronavirus. Oh gosh. Yeah. But it's actually crazy to think how much of a rapid, like talking about the coronavirus for a second, just how rapid it's just exploded on media. And we spoke about it a little bit yesterday, how like, and especially as a personal trainer, like it's not our scope of practice to be like talking about like it's health, but this is doctors. They know what's legit, what isn't. So it's really kind of in some ways cringy to see like PTs like talking about the coronavirus. I think general just like talking about hygiene or sharing other doctors' work, for example, is totally fair. But Charlotte's been kind of hyper focused because I guess for you, well, more so for me, because all I do is I'm at home all day on my own. So all I have to do is make sure when I come in, I wash my hands basically, and then my environment's fairly clean. Whereas you have people penetrating your environment with the kids coming home and coughing. Yeah. So she's been quite hyper focused, and she's been like, we've been looking to buy like the alcohol gel to clean your hands. Everywhere's sold out. It's actually crazy. Everywhere's sold out of it, and it's nothing I've really like. You just don't think about it normally. So it's. I
mean, this is something that you should do, or in my opinion, should do anyway. Like I have is it called disinfection as well?
Maybe like disinfectant. I think that's maybe a more stronger solution. But
yeah, but this is
like
something that I have at home because I just like it. Whenever I went to the bathroom, I'm actually cleaning my hands like this. When I'm traveling, I always have like a small bottle with me as well. And this is something that I think you should normally do anyway. But this is, once again, just my opinion. And then I went out to the grocery market just around the corner, and it's crazy the behavior of people just due to this. And this is driven by media as well. Sure, there is a certain field or a certain demographic that is more susceptible to that. As far as I understand, elderly folks and people with pre-medical conditions are more so susceptible for this or for the dangers of that. But even there, I think James Krieger, because he is a statistician when it comes to doing research and all that kind of stuff. So I when he's saying something about numbers and stuff, I normally believe him, right? And he just posted something about the percentage of the mortality risk and stuff like that. And that is basically like 0.1 out of the people who are in the hospital diagnosed with that are dying. So this is a ridiculously low number. And once again, I'm not an expert, but the thing is, I think that it is a little bit over-exaggerating. Especially considering that there are many, many other diseases and other things that are happening on a daily basis that kill more people, much more people. And that doesn't mean that an epidemic couldn't break out, but it's not an epidemic such as, I don't know, the Black Death, right? It's not like that, where I think Black Death had like 1 out of 4 people were dying or so, right?
Yeah.
And it's definitely not like that.
Yeah, I think it's crazy the impact it's already had, just seeing the Arnold being cancelled. And I know Jackson Pios was I think he's in Japan, in Tokyo, and the ISSN conference got cancelled. And it's just like, to me, it's worrying because we have events happening in number of time. I'm sure it's not going to impact that. But like, you touch wood, because like, you don't know what's going to happen. Because yeah, my worry about it isn't for my health. It's more so like, I don't know, my grandparents and other elderly people. And this is just lethal in the way that it just can pass between people so rapidly. Yeah. That's the only like part of it. But
have you ever watched, I think the name of the movie is Contagious or Contagion?
No, I like the sound of it though.
It is, when I remember correctly, with Lawrence Fishburne and what's the gal again who actually claims alkaline diet and who was also in Avengers? What you call it again? Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh,
and this basically is just like a realistic presentation of how a virus can spread. And this is basically very, very similar. I think it is also there stemming from an animal sold via a market or so. Someone was consuming that, and then he was just like spreading it across the entire globe, right? Very interesting. And yeah, I mean, there have been so many epidemics in the past. I don't know. This is something that I find very interesting. I definitely didn't do a lot of research, but the stories I know from those big epidemics in the past, I don't know if you are aware of the Spanish flu.
I've heard of it, yeah.
I mean, this was a ridiculous epidemic. I mean, for everyone interested in like severe epidemics, just Google the Spanish flu and read or listen or whatever, watch some kind of a documentary about it, because that is crazy. That is ridiculous, actually. Because I think it wiped out like, I don't want to say any kind of numbers. But
a lot.
It wiped out a lot of the global population.
It's actually an interesting perspective that I've had a little bit of a perspective shift on it, because I'd been terrible for keeping up with the news, and Charlotte kind of had a go at me. So I've been making it an actual real effort to view the news daily. And then I can't remember where I heard it. It was like a bit of a stoicism type. Actually, it might have been Lyndon Purcell. So shout out to Lyndon from JPS. He spoke about how people are so obsessed with the news, yet they don't know like history and big things that happened in the past that have really real consequences. Like the news is just new. It's what's flashy now. but actually understanding the past, like the Spanish flu, was probably something that if you were to learn about that, you probably get more from it than maybe looking at the coronavirus or something like this. But it was an interesting perspective shift for me because, it's completely true about the news. Like a lot of the time, it's just small, maybe kind of inconsequential things in the bigger picture of the world and what's happened. But what I wanted to lead on to, Pascal, before we go down.
Wait a second. I just needed to Google
okay.
that. And I couldn't find immediate numbers. And the thing is, it was in 1918. So it's probably not as well recorded as nowadays things are. So probably the number is even much lower than it actually was. But the virus infected 500 million people worldwide and killed an estimate of 20 to 50 million people. And that was during that time. I don't know the actual number worldwide of people, but it was probably a huge percentage of the world population that was killed due to that.
That's a lot of people.
A lot of people, actually.
So I was going to lead us on to you're sounding better, you're kind of recovered, and what's happening next week for you. So to fill the listeners in, you've had 3-4 weeks now, maintenance intake, lower training volumes, essentially a kind of not designed, but became a primer phase for you.
So I'm feeling better. I'm still coughing a lot when I'm out walking or when I'm moving, but when I'm sitting at home, it's completely kind of not even noticeable anymore. And I'm also not really noticing that I'm sick anymore, but this is also something that Katie had. So basically the same symptoms I'm experiencing right now, Katie had like 2 or 3 weeks ago, where she was coughing like this harsh barking, so to speak. And right now I can still train. It's sometimes I'm getting a little bit dizzy when I'm standing up or when I'm in the gym and actually pushing a little bit harder. So I was taking it a little bit more easy, still trained as I intended to train, not with a proper set progression though. So I kept it very much at maintenance, kind of. So a little bit over maintenance probably. I could probably progress like this for a very long time before actually truly stalling. And then I ate a maintenance. So this was basically what I've done over the past couple of weeks. And unfortunately, it's like I told you already, it didn't really feel like a diet break, didn't really feel like a maintenance phase or so due to me being sick. And over the past, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I was truly sick, and also last week when I couldn't record the Improvement Season podcast, it's not really a relief because there's a different stressor in your life or a different stressor for your body to take care of and to cope with. So that is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And this is also one of the reasons why you and I, planned actually such a long time for our preps. It's not because we are, planning on getting ready too early or so. It was more like a precautious measure because our experience told us that planning in a little bit more time is probably the wisest thing to do, because you can't ever be too early in the sense when you plan it out accordingly. So if you are on the right track and you see that things are going very well, you can actually slow down things, or such as you, implement a longer maintenance phase so that you don't run the risk of being ready too early. So this is, I think, where the beauty of a well-planned prep plays out. And right now I still have like 22 weeks to go or so. So for me, before that, I was already saying that I'm in prep mode, but actually it didn't really feel like it. Now that when I'm entering the new cutting phase, it will more so feel like, okay, prep is real, because 20 weeks or so until the first show. 20 weeks sounds like a long time, but in reality it isn't.
Yeah. Actually, a really nice quote that is going to stick in my mind, because when I heard it, I was like, whoa, that is straight up fire, as you would say, was from Peter Fitchen, and it's a podcast that hasn't come out yet. I don't think it won't come out for a few weeks, but he talked about how having kind of more weeks in your pocket than pounds to lose.
Yeah.
And I think for your first show, you said over 20 weeks actually, and you have what you think, 20 pounds at most?
Yeah, I think
that's your first show.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, exactly. That's my first show. So I think it's around 22 pounds. This is my estimated weight I need to lose. So for now, could be that I'm surprising myself. Could be that I even need to lose more. But when I need to lose more, that is absolutely all right because it's my first show, right? So yeah, this is how things are at the moment.
And is your last show the October the 31st Halloween special?
Yeah, it is. At least that's the plan for now. You never know what's about to happen, but yeah, I think that this will be the one.
Because I think that's a good 2 months later. So that's another 8 weeks of like prep you've got in your pocket.
Which is good, right? Because this is something that you and I discussed. At first, I was like a little bit skeptical then and a little bit nervous. Well, I'm getting more and more nervous and was like, so am I really ready on time? But then I just needed to realize or calm myself down and saying, okay, you have like 20 to 22 weeks for the first show. So calm the fuck down. This is absolutely all right. So this is £1 on average per week. That should be absolutely feasible for everyone to achieve.
Yeah. And then if you're not peaked, there's a kind of like a bit of a gray zone, I think, where you are stage ready, but maybe you aren't peaked. As in you're lean enough to stand on stage and not look silly, but you're not necessarily in your best condition. So you actually don't probably want to be in your best condition by that show, because otherwise what's going to happen in like 2 months or so time is going to be really difficult. But at the end of the day, you don't know how it's going to pan out exactly.
To be absolutely honest, and this shouldn't sound as if I'm not taking things seriously, but because I've never stepped on stage and because of 2017, I will celebrate the first time I'm stepping on stage so badly, because it's just like, shit, I've done it. Oh, finally, come on. Now you can relax, right? Not relax in the sense of like, okay, from now on, I don't take it seriously anymore, but more so, the first hurdle has been overcome, and now you can just relax because you've done it. You've done what you set for yourself as a goal, right? And yeah, I'm looking forward to that time.
What's your predicted stage weight again? Is that 150?
Yeah, so a little bit below 150.
Okay,
I would say. So
I was just because I re-looked at what the weight categories were for the UK DFBA, and 154 was the low end of middleweight, and I was like, Pascal won't be too far off that. Maybe we would be on stage at the same time, and that would be insane. But yeah, you may well fall into the lightweight. That would be cool
because I'm nearly the same size as you with. I don't know
you'd be more competitive in the lightweights.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just would have been crazy to actually be on stage together. Although, is Z planning to do that August qualifier?
Yeah.
Oh wow! So you will be on stage with Z probably.
Yeah, very likely. And then for Worlds, we are of course aiming to do Bantam, but Bantam, it's not a category in the UK DFBA. But for Worlds it is. So this is what we're aiming for.
I think I might fall into lightweights for Worlds. I'm not sure, depending on what I don't know how they exactly do that. But where was I going to go? No, I guess idea. That's a nice overall update on yourself.
How
really cool,
are things on your end now that you are able to eat all the hot cross buns once again?
So I don't know what I ended up saying last time. I don't know if I'd made my decision of what I am doing now, which is maintenance. I think last time I might have said that I was continuing to do that final diet. So really quickly, I had planned in another mesocycle of dieting, then 2 months of maintenance, and then going into shows. But this way round, I kind of, after consulting with Pascal, I talked to Peter Fitchen on the podcast, and then a little bit afterwards as well. And I had a back and forth with Cliff actually after the fact. I'd already made the decision, but he also confirmed that it was the right call to make, where I'm kind of at that lower end of my settling body fat range where I feel comfortable. And it's where we have written about before. And this is where consulting with like yourself is really helpful, because then I have that outside view. I was getting clear muscle definition, muscle separation across my entire body, even in the legs started coming through, a little bit of striations. And that's like, if I got any leaner than that, if I did that last mesocycle, I think I would have just pushed past that point of sustainability. And then this phase right now, where I tried to maintain such a lean physique, would have felt like crap. So decided to duck in early so that I banked basically an extra like 2 weeks of maintenance and an extra 2 weeks of dieting before the next show. But obviously I lost 2 weeks of dieting basically, but I don't think I need them. So yeah, by August, I'm not sure I'll be right on the cuff of just about stage appropriate. I might look a bit soggy, but I should look relatively crisp. I'll be like really not surprised. I'll be really happy if I qualify there. That'll be awesome. But I'm not guaranteeing it for myself to qualify for finals. And I do really want to qualify for finals. Like, that doesn't happen, I'll be a little bit upset about kind of the whole process, to be honest, because I've been there before. But then I think a month later, there's another qualifier, which is the Heart of England, which is the show I did 2017, actually.
It's Manchester, right? Manchester's Heart of England, and then Birmingham is Midlands.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm not sure it is Manchester, though. I don't remember going to Manchester. But I think there's a Birmingham BMBF show in Manchester, so that might be the one you're thinking of.
Yeah, it could be.
But yeah, so I've got there's several qualifiers, and I'm basically, rather than previous show seasons, I've always kind of just picked shows and been like, I'm doing this one, I have to do this one. Whereas this time round, I'm much more like, hey, I'm in stage condition or close enough. Let's just do a bunch of qualifiers and have fun here. Yeah. So that's why I want to come into Germany and do the Halloween special, because that'll be really cool to do together. And like, as long as I'm stage appropriate, I don't care if I'm peak condition or not. I think the realization is, even when you try and peak your condition, you may not end up peaking your condition. You can't be that precise with it. It's kind of like you just kind of run with the punches, for example. But it's going to be crazy in that August show if we have you, me, Harry, Jess, and Z. That's going to... And then Mike Chalice is coming for support. Man, that's going to be a crazy day.
I have perhaps even like 2 or 3 athletes who will be competing there as well. So, yeah. I mean, besides Z is an athlete as well. But yeah, besides him, maybe even 2 or 3 other athletes as well.
I think the thing I'm going to have to do for that, I'm already a little bit anxious about it, is making sure I've planned my clients' peaks well ahead, and then have a plan myself. Like, obviously, like, I just on the show day want to be sure that I can give myself due diligence and like concentrate on myself and not have to concentrate too much on them. That's probably something I'll have to discuss with them as well. But so that they have a plan and can be confident, because I know I'll be wanting to give them everything. But it's important to realize we're also doing this to compete and win.
Yeah. So, yeah, here, have this full, glass of pickle water, right? So all the sodium, and then it's stepping on stage against you. Oh, you look so soft. What happened there? What was going on?
So, yeah, to finish that, I guess... Right now, I'm in basically just over 2 months of maintenance is the idea. I don't know if it'll be cut short a little bit, but I have basically my final hypertrophy mesocycle. I just shifted into maintenance. So I'm maintaining 180 pounds. And this is why I wanted to ask you, Pascal. My metabolism, and we have slightly different metabolisms in terms of like their reaction to calories. When I get calories in an off season, my maintenance intake just ramps up. So I did a comparison of 180 pounds versus 180 pounds. And someone asked me, what was your calorie intake versus each? And I was like, good question. So I checked back. I was maintaining on like 3,600 calories because that maintenance was after a mass. Whereas this maintenance right now is after a cut. And I'm now maintaining on like just over 3,000, but my steps are like 5,000 higher. So it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, this is something that so many people don't realize, that the metabolism adapts upwards and downwards. And that could possibly mean that there's a huge discrepancy, right? So when you're gaining, it could even be that 200 or 300 kcals of a surplus doesn't even very much do much for you. You have to even bump it up to 500, 600, 700 even, like from your old maintenance. But because you're gaining a little bit of weight, the metabolism adapts upwards as well. Could end up, such as you, that you are then ending up with 4,000 calories. But once you lose the weight, once the metabolism adapts to that lower intake and that smaller body in it for itself, right, your new maintenance can look quite different in different stages of your cutting phase, and also then the maintenance. So some people are just like very much surprised when they need to go super low on calories, especially in a contest prep, where it's like, I don't even get why I need to consume now 1,600 calories. This is why.
It just is what it is.
I mean, it is what it is. And there's no value in just like, this can't be right. I'm trying to do the math here, right? If that's what it takes to actually get lean, it is what it is.
That's what I was going to ask you. You're maintaining now. What calories versus when you were maintaining before you started the prep?
2,800. And
that's not bad.
That's not bad at all. But other than that, so before that was at around 1,300, 3,200, which is not bad at all because I've lost like 10 kilograms ever since then.
So this is a great example because your maintenance is what shifted like 300, 400 calories, whereas I was maintaining on like almost 4,000 calories. Yeah. And now I'm maintaining 1,000 calories less, and I've lost less weight than you, and I'm doing more steps than I was before.
Yeah. So let's hope it stays that way so that I'm able to actually get shredded with like 2,000 calories of an intake or so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really cool to see how extreme even ourselves versus one another are, and I'm hoping I can ramp mine up as high as I can. So I am looking to creep it up to like, if I can get it up to like 32, 33 by the end of this maintenance period, that'll be good.
I'm very much looking forward to the summertime though, because of the project of the new house. I think just the moving in it for itself, setting everything up in the household, and that will be July. And it will be so helpful to have that, because you will be so focused on actually getting everything or setting everything up at home, all the logistical kind of things there, and you will be so occupied with that so that you're not really thinking that much about food. And at the same time, the activity levels will be quite high as well. And what I'm also getting is finally, again, because I have the space for it, a spinning bike, because I just loved it the one time I had it at home. Everyone knows that story who has listened to one of the Improvement Season podcasts, like, I don't know, 6-7 episodes ago or so. And this is definitely something I will get for at home as well, because now we have the space for it. And once you have that at home, and also with the project of the house, fuck, that will come in so handy in July. So handy.
Yeah, the only thing I will be changing is I will be buying that weighted vest a new one you've got that's like 10 kilos. Yeah. When I start my prep, I'm thinking I'm just going to chuck that on and start at like as high a calorie intake as I can, just to help things move along. There it is.
I have them both here. This is the 10 kilogram vest, and then the other one underneath is like the one where you can add weight and decrease the weight. And let me tell you this, the 10 kilogram the
Classic.
10 kilogram vest is so much more comfortable. It's unbelievable. I can't even wear that other one anymore. And that was from Capital Sports, which I would say is not even a bad brand or so, but boy was that hard to wear. And there was right now, I had like 14 kilograms on the one from Capital Sports, and then there is just like the 10 kilograms from this one, and it feels completely different. The 10 kilograms, I can't even notice because it's just so well made. It's kind of snug to the body, and it's distributing its weight a little bit more nicely. So I can highly recommend everyone to actually get that one. And what I was thinking, Steve, right, is why hasn't anyone created a kind of a jacket or so, right? Because this one, it's not really thick because the weight is just distributed so evenly. And the thing is, when you carry like a jacket or just something like this, right? Just with the weight, you could actually add like 15 kilograms or 20 kilograms, spread it all across the body, and it wouldn't really feel that hard on you, I would assume. Why didn't anyone come up with something like this? I would assume that the production costs would be quite insane. That a weight jacket would actually cost like 150 or 200. But this is something that, I mean, it would be so nice to actually have it.
It's making me think of like Piccolo on Dragon Ball Z with his like weighted cloak.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. Awesome. Should we get into some questions? I think we've given a nice little overview and update. So
30 minutes in already.
Yeah.
Time.
This week we have questions because me and Harry got through so many. We've actually got questions, and I literally very quickly put up a question box on my Instagram. So we're stealing them from Instagram.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
Yeah, just to put it out there, it was my fault because I started only collecting questions over on our group every second week. And I thought that there are probably some questions left open from the last Improvement Season podcast, but it turned out that there weren't.
I'm just going to blame Harry. It's fine.
Yeah. You were too efficient.
So let's go to the first question. I'm just going to read out their names as their Instagram names. So this is always fun. The first one is from Brad _JHS. Mm-hmm. He says, or she, but well, it's a he because it's Brad. I can't even. Anyway, I tend to feel a great stimulus week 1, but as weeks progress, my muscle connection tends to get worse. ? It's more of a statement than a question, but any thoughts on that, Pascal?
Yeah, it could be that you are experiencing a lot of local fatigue. Short question or statement, and also short idea from my end. So when you have a hard time actually contracting the muscle tissue, it could possibly mean that you just experience an overall central nervous system fatigue, which then has a direct effect on the peripheral nervous system, and thus recruiting motor units or the muscle fibers. And if you have maybe then just like local fatigue in a specific muscle group, whereas in other muscle groups you don't have that issue, could still mean that you are just overdoing it for that specific muscle group or just like in general.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting because that's not the line of thought that immediately spun to my mind, but that makes a lot of sense. The thing I was thinking was essentially kind of thinking about how much time that deload has bought you in terms of feeling sensitized to training, and potentially it's bought you enough to have 1 week of good feeling within the training, but not further weeks. And therefore, I wonder, and I would ask, and I imagine, and I could ask this to a lot of people and they would have the same sort of answer. When was the last time you did a true low volume primer resensitization phase? And if it was a long time ago, like 6 months plus, might be time to drop one in, because I imagine that's something that people don't use enough or maybe have never used, and it might just be time. But yeah, there's lots of avenues you could go down with this question. Statement.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Sure, and that was just my first thought that sprung to my mind. It could also just be that I don't know what your progression scheme looks like. So it could possibly be that you are hitting the appropriate area, picking the appropriate weight for a certain movement. And then when weeks progress, you just overshooting the things that you are capable of doing. So the best example I can think of is the RDL. And I think that many people can relate to that. They load the bar appropriately. They feel like a very good tension on the hamstrings, on the glutes on week 1, or maybe even in the deload, because the weight is appropriately picked and they are not carrying any kind of fatigue from the previous weeks. But once they are increasing the load, but just like 2.5 kilograms or 5 kilograms, all of a sudden they simply don't feel it that much anymore in the intended muscle group. And the thing is that even though that you're recording yourself, it could possibly be that you don't see or notice those kind of movement changes like on video. because we are speaking about maybe a couple of centimeters of a different movement pattern that is high or hardly noticeable for the untrained eye. Maybe someone like, I don't know, an Olympic weightlifter coach who has coached like people for 20 years, where every centimeter counts, who is able to detect that, but not someone like you and I or so, right? And then sometimes it's just a matter of that you are overdoing things, or you are not honest to yourself in regards to the appropriate weight that you chose for that exercise.
Yeah, I think potentially sometimes people view like 3 RER as like when form starts to break down rather than slow down, and then they're like 2 1 RERs are just further form breakdown, and therefore mind muscle connection is probably something that just worsens. But that's such a good point on the RDL, because just things like having your back arched to slightly flexed or to neutral and then slightly flexed, like you can't see that in a video, especially when you've got like a jumper on or like a belt on. It's just something you necessarily feel.
And the funny thing is that apparently under load on a deadlift or so, the spine still flexes, even though that it seems on the outside that your spine is neutral. So it could possibly be that your spinal flexion is actually increased just due to that minimal increase in load, without you even noticing the difference outside of your body.
Guess the back has so many joints, like if one slightly was to move, like you wouldn't necessarily, it's not something you could perceive.
No, and so
very interesting.
Especially like when the muscles, especially when you carry a lot of muscle tissue around that section. For some people, even the best deadlifters, right? They carry or they have such huge erectors that even for them, it looks like that their back is rounded, where in reality it isn't really, right? So especially when you have like super thick erectors, would you be able to actually notice the difference whether your spine is like, I don't know, a certain degree flexed or not? Probably not, right? So there are a lot, once again, such as you brought up already, there are a lot of avenues you could go down and try to analyze the situation. And that's why I also think that something trying to be as honest and true to yourself as possible when it comes to training is the way to go. Also, leaving your ego at the door, trying to focus on something like mind-muscle connection. I think when it comes to mind-muscle connection, people always say, like, is it very much important? And I think it is. Maybe not due to the direct hypertrophic adaptations or the effect of hypertrophy, but more so what it does to you, your awareness and all that kind of stuff, right? Right? Because when mind-muscle connection goes to shit, probably you're either just too fatigued or your form is compromised, something like that. And this is where then the mind-muscle connection is actually kind of a direct cause for hypertrophy, because you're then actually taking more care of focusing on working that intended muscle group.
And Pascal, would you agree as a definition for mind-muscle connection, it's perceived tension within the muscle? That's what we're talking about. Because I think some people are like, mind-muscle connection, and they don't really know what it means, but it's perceived like tension within that muscle group.
Absolutely. And to be fair, I thought for a very long time I knew what mind-muscle connection is, until the point where I actually came to realize what it actually is. You know what I mean? It's kind of the Dunning-Kruger effect. I thought that I knew so much until I realized that I don't know anything.
Right.
And this is exactly what happened to me in regards to the mind-muscle connection. And I also think that it takes time and practice, because just from a physiological perspective, and if you consider that people recruit different amounts of motor units and thus muscle fibers. And this is a skill that is developing over time. The more and the longer you train, the more likely it is that you are engaging and recruiting more motor units and muscle fibers. And thus, mind-muscle connection could be seen as a skill, because over time you're getting better at recruiting more motor units, and you should be able to feel the muscle even better and better over time. And also just in it for itself, because you're using more load, which then causes a higher level of metabolic disruption, and thus you should even feel it even more so.
Really interesting just thought, because you've just made me think of this, Pascal. Something I've always wondered is, you see sometimes, especially like on a bent over row, for example, quite high, or at least you see high level lifters quite often using some momentum within that. You obviously see lots of people use momentum, but high level lifters doing it who have very thick and big backs. And sometimes I wonder, and as ever, I'm a pretty big advocate of fairly strict technique. I wonder sometimes if, because that person is at that level of advancement where they do have that level of recruitment, they truly do feel it better in their back with that slight amount of momentum, where maybe they can improve the resistance profile, but that's like just for someone who's very advanced, or like for sure is getting that down. I think for a beginner, there's no way they're able to do that, but I'd love to hear what you think.
I have a different thought that I would like to throw at you first. And that is the central nervous system is kind of that protective mechanism, or kind of that protective system in your body that is also then telling like, okay, this is how far you can push and no further. And I've always been thinking, and this is something I've been thinking for a very long time, and I don't think that we can necessarily say that this is the case yet, but I was always thinking that maybe these guys who are genetically blessed are not just genetically blessed in the sense that they are reacting well to hypertrophy, but more so, maybe it's also that their central nervous system has a lower threshold of a protective mechanism. So what just to make it a little bit more understandable, if you, let's say you should go to a true failure. What failure is to you will be quite different to what failure is for me, because the central nervous system will at some point protect you of actually going there, because you can't just go all out. Mm-hmm. It's not possible, right? The body will always tell you like, okay, up until here and no further. So I was always thinking that maybe the threshold for certain individuals is just maybe lower, where the body kicks in later of that protective mechanism, and that's why they can push a set maybe further.
I think, I don't know if that plays into the momentum argument, but I do think that's incredibly interesting, because I definitely think it's true. It's like we talk about with our clients, and we get them to put in their RER, and we might say it looks like something, but only they truly know, because it is very individual. Like you said, it's your rate of it's your perception, right? And I know Scott Stevenson has come on the podcast, and he's been on many podcasts talking about like the example of the guy who, like, I don't know, he had an accident and he had like this metal peg through his leg for like hours, and so his rate of perceived exertion in terms of like soreness, he was like, his muscle damage was like ridiculously huge, and he was like, meh, it's nothing. Whereas like for most people that would have been like hugely painful. So yeah. There must be a genetic component to that, and I wonder if there's even a trained component to that, which would give some credence to some of the kind of the higher intensity crowd, and where they talk about like you got to learn to push your limits in that sense.
Yeah, and just to then, because I actually brought up a question to your question, and I think that it ties into that. Maybe they can get away with that because the body doesn't really protect them to that significant of an extent from actually going there. Of like, okay, this is kind of dangerous, or your muscle tissue is now that fatigued, thus I need to protect you or so, right? Maybe it kicks in a little bit later. Maybe that protective mechanism of the central nervous system, the threshold is just a little bit lower. Something that I don't think that I ever heard anyone talk about that. I'm just aware of that protective mechanism from the central nervous system, but I've never heard of anyone talking about the possible or the consideration of that these people who get very, very big may also be the ones who can push it that hard and cause such a huge metabolic disruption because the central nervous system doesn't stand on their way to actually push it there.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, because I think it's like through electrodes or something, you can get more out of a muscle than like if you were just telling someone to do something. You get more force out of a muscle if you were like using electrodes to use the muscle. Like you get more force out of it because you override that protective mechanism that you're talking about. And then I guess the question would be, okay, so you can override it, but is that always a good thing? Because you can grow very well with the leaving reps and reserves. So if you're so good at overriding it, you're just creating so much excess fatigue, which again, you could say the momentum that they're generating is potentially just excess fatigue and less stimulus.
Absolutely.
So
and
it's
this
minutia.
is something that is something that, this is why I find that thought and that idea is so compelling to think about it, because maybe, especially also for those people who say like, I'm not really genetically blessed or so, maybe you kind of are, but what your muscles are able to withstand, or what you would be possible able to grow, kind of contradicts with what your central nervous system allows you to do or to handle. So I would very, very much see kind of, I don't know, evidence or studies being conducted in that field and looking at that. But I have I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher, so I have no idea how you would actually go about setting a study up like this.
No, I don't either. Next question before I don't even know. I think we've answered that question okay and turned it into another one. So you're going to love this question, Pascal. It is from Jatin_Arya001. For beginner, Dr. Mike style is good, or if not, give your advice or recommendation.
I mean, what style? Is he referring to the volume landmarks? Is he referring to, I don't know, taking special sports supplements? Wearing Crocs in the gym? I have no idea. So I would assume that he means he or she?
Yeah, wouldn't know. Jatin.
Okay,
I'm going to assume most of these are from males because my audience is heavily males.
Yeah. What a surprise.
Not enough glute shots.
Yeah. With the volume landmarks, I think that there is maybe some merit in doing so, because the volume landmarks apply to several different aspects in life. Basically, you could apply it to everything, like learning, like stress, like driving, like sports, right? There is a minimum threshold that you need to exceed to actually get some kind of adaptation or take something away from it. There's probably a certain threshold which, when you exceed that one, that you get anything out of it or maybe even regress or so, right? So I think that there is some merit learning that and figuring that out, because this is the same when it comes to deloads. Should beginners deload? Should? Maybe not, but I think that there is some inherent benefit in actually learning that, listening to your body, building that awareness, and also learning how that feels and listening to kind of the body signals along the way. And thus, I think that, there may be some good reason as to why doing that, but it's not absolutely necessary, no.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think beginners, for me, as a definition, are people who can grow from doing fucking basically everything wrong. So this would be doing things pretty damn right for someone who's more intermediate. So I would say, like you said there, you're basically laying the foundations of proper training at that stage.
I think when we were to bring up some priorities, I think that this shouldn't be high up on your priority list first, but after a couple of months, maybe it creeps up more and more.
Cool. Awesome. Next question. Come on. Recognize me, phone.
The iPhone.
So Niklas_O_Z has said, general recommendations to number of movements per muscle group. I think we've answered this before.
Yeah. I mean, you were in the range of 4 to 6 or so, right?
I think I tend to go 3 to 4, but it could go higher than that for some muscle groups like back and in some mesocycles. But on average, 3 to 4 is like where I tend to go.
For me, it's most of the time like 3 to 6, just due to the thing of, like, for example, when I prescribe something like an upper, lower, or even 6 days a week of push-pull legs. Some exercises I think are better done in the lower repetition range and some are better done in the higher repetition range. And because of that, I don't want to just distribute my volume in those lower repetition ranges and have like only 1 or 2 exercises there, but also spread it across a workout.
Yeah, I'm either undulating a rep range or an exercise. I very rarely do the same exercise in the same rep range more than once a week.
Yeah.
Very rarely.
But I have to say, though, just recently, I've been thinking, like, okay, why am I not doing hack squats, for example, twice per week?
Right.
Why do I need to do something like leg presses for the second workout? Do I really think that there's that much of a difference in the movement pattern? Probably not. Both cause a high level of knee flexion. Right. Same goes for the example of hack squats versus squats. I was always like under the opinion that squats are just superior, that they cause a significant more amount of hypertrophy. But over time, I'm more and more skeptical about that, just because the mechanism is so similar, while at the same time you can load the hack squat super heavy. You don't have that compartment of axial loading, like significant axial loading. There's still a little bit of axial loading going on, but not significantly. Also, you take out that stability portion of the lift, so you can really just overload the quads. And thus, I'm coming more and more to the opinion that maybe for more local hypertrophy, something like that may be even better, and also a better time investment when you are training more frequently during the week, instead of then this systemic compartment of like that the systemic fatigue is massively increasing with something like squats, whereas then the stimulus to fatigue ratio may look quite different. Yes, when you are limited on time, when you only want to be at the gym for so long, if you only can train for 4 days out of a week, I think that maybe squats are still better. But I'm coming more and more to the, idea or theory that maybe these movements are maybe better than the free weight movements. It's crazy, I know, but I think that there's a certain dogma right now still in the lifting community. Not just the bros, but also the evidence-based field, that everyone thinks that heavy compound lifts are just superior. But I would yet like to see whether this holds true for very trained individuals when they were to do something like, let's just bring up the example one more time, just squats versus hack squats. And then for a very long time, like measuring the quad hypertrophy. Is there really that much of a difference? I don't know. Could be. But also could be that it's not. And I just would like to get closer to the truth with that one as well.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Yeah, I completely agree in terms of this is why, I don't know, it's so crazy. When I was earlier in my career, squatting twice a week would not be out of question at all. That's totally reasonable. Whereas now, to squat twice a week, that's like, ooh, that's a pretty challenging proposition. So I always, if I am squatting, it tends to be a once a week thing. And I completely agree that as you get more advanced, because of the fact that your MRV kind of limits are being pushed and you can't so much push, you kind of have to change every movement for each muscle group to more isolation-like to get out as much as possible, because otherwise you just get this spillover effect and it could end up disrupting you. And I think, I'm of the same opinion. I used to prescribe squats probably a lot more than what I do now, because I was just thinking, squats are king. But I think for quite a lot of people, they're not.
I was also very much afraid of actually going more with those isolation movements. And we know that you can't directly isolate a muscle group unless you are putting electrodes or so into them and just stimulating the muscles by that. But we still don't know whether this actually then leads to hypertrophy, right? But that being said, just knowing that, I don't really know whether free weight movements are superior, in every single aspect. Maybe for strength, but for hypertrophy of a specific muscle group or area, I don't know, because I'm not training the deadlift, or I'm not doing a deadlift to train my back. Sorry, but that's fucking ridiculous and stupid. That is just my idea of the matter, right? Because, if you want to grow a massive and nasty back, then do a lot of rowing movements, but not the deadlift. And the same goes then for other free weight movements against then machine-based movements.
I'm I have nothing more to say at the moment, actually. That was well said.
Yeah.
So, next question. This is from, again, let's go to another person because it was from Nicholas again. Steve Self-Sees. Yeah, well, that is what it is. Steve Self-Sees. It says, recommendation for cardio, in brackets, health reasons, that will have low impact on systemic fatigue.
I am actually the wrong person to ask about health implications when it comes to cardio. I think you are so as well. I think that there are more qualified people to talk about that because we are more so physique oriented. And for that, it's just like cardio. I mean, yeah, probably a little bit of cardiovascular work is not a bad idea if health is your main goal. How much? I can't tell you. And what? I can't tell you as well. Maybe something like cycling because it's not really that metabolically disruptive. Because running is just due to the sheer impact on the streets and stuff. It's quite metabolically disruptive. And also for the joints and stuff. But if you just want to get a little bit more of cardiovascular ability, then maybe cycling, swimming, I don't know.
Yeah,
3 times per week, 30 minutes, something like that. Don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right in that we are like what we're trying to achieve. And I imagine Steve, who was asking this, his main goal probably isn't general health because once you get into like intermediate and you're trying to push to advanced levels of muscle mass, I mean, I don't know, but I'd imagine once you're pushing that to that point and the body's resisting you that hard, it's resisting because that's past the bounds of what would be deemed as like a healthy amount of muscle mass. We're essentially pushing beyond what is considered a healthy amount of muscle mass, but like it's not like it's super unhealthy to have it, but we do some things that probably aren't super healthy, like staying in a surplus for an extended period of time.
And all the trend that we are shooting in our glutes.
Speak for yourself. So yeah, I think in terms of like for us and as far as I'm concerned about general health and for my clients and their general health, like we're doing a lot of healthy things. I'm only concerned if like in a mass phase, they're literally getting 0 steps and they're just like in the gym. If they're that sedentary, then like I'll be like, yeah, try and get like 5,000 steps in. But past that,
oh, sorry,
I have nothing more.
And also, I think our audience are not those people who are, I don't know, 120, 130 kilograms in the off season or so, or who are shooting gear primarily. I know that some people are, and that is absolutely fine. But this is a completely different field than in it for itself. There is a lot of thought then going into that where you need to take care of other health markers as well. So I'm specifically talking about natural athletes now. When it comes to that, probably your body will never, so your size and your body weight will never get to a level where it's truly detrimental for your health. And because you're training like 4-5 days out of the week, I think health is not really that much of a concern. But yeah, maybe over time. Also, we always need to look at it on a spectrum. The most healthy is probably doing a little bit of resistance training, stay as tiny as possible, do like 3 times a week, cardiovascular work, have low impact of stress, good sleep, stuff like that, right? But now on a spectrum of a physique athlete, I think when you are a natural athlete, it also then is moving a little bit to the detrimental side, but not that much.
Yeah.
Right. And because we never really push our body fat or body weight levels to a level where it's truly like that BMI of massively obese or so. We may be in the BMI level of overweight or a little bit above that, so 27 or so, right? But nothing out of the ordinary. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well
just
said.
Thought.
And I think we had a podcast with Dr. Mike where we talked about like implications for health. So I think that came on a Q&A. So if you want to hear what he had to say, it was very similar to what Pascal said there. So awesome. Vinesh CG has asked, does good morning feel heavier than RDL on the low back? Do you do good mornings, Pascal?
Yeah, right now. But the problem is I have an appointment for an orthopedic once again, because I have something on the left side, and this has been bugging me for a very long time. And it is now at the point where it starts impacting my rowing movements and also RDLs and good mornings. Whenever I'm contracting like my back musculature and kind of retract or depress my scapula, it kind of flares up. It's nothing that is painful, just like very uncomfortable. And yeah, this is kind of impacting me, but hard on the lower back, at least not to the way I perceive things. It's just like good mornings are more unforgivable. When your form is not on point with good mornings, you will feel it so much more than RDLs. With RDLs, you can grind without actually noticing that. What with good mornings, when your form isn't on point, you will feel that.
Yeah, I'd agree. Actually, that's very interesting. I'd only say I do low bar. I've done high bar good mornings, and I realized they're terrible for me. They're actually a movement I just really don't agree with. With me, and I've got those felt more in the low back, which makes sense because the weight's a bit further away from it, so the joint angles and everything. But I couldn't connect with that movement. But for low bar good mornings, they're feeling amazing at the moment. They're feeling so good. But actually what you said there, Pascal, RDLs, like you can almost, like you don't notice that it's happening as much as on a good morning. As soon as you kind of finish a good morning, it's just like, I don't know why that is, but both of them, obviously, like you got the isometric contraction of the low back. So I always say to clients, like if they feel a little bit in their lower back, it's not like the end of the world. It's like, well, the erectors are working freaking hard. But if you feel it more in the lower back than your hamstrings, then that's when it's like, well, something else is, we probably need to work on the arch or the weight's too heavy, that sort of thing. So cool. We got time for another one?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, we have a few more questions that are okay. Jordan _GSW. Very specific question. How to bail out of a hack squat if stuck at the bottom.
Oh.
Have you ever got stuck there, Pascal?
No. I've never gotten stuck. And there's something I think that we've talked about. It's been a long time since I failed a movement. A very long time. I can't even recall when I last needed to bail out of a movement. So I mean, I don't know, actually.
Jordan is currently in the hack squat typing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, exactly. Help. I'm just trying to think of my hack squat machine, because my hack squat machine has an incredible range of motion. Like, some hack squat machines are quite limited, which is a little bit of a bummer, right? But mine is just like going all the way down. So I can see that you are actually getting stuck there and you really can't get out of it. But I honestly don't know how. I mean, I would say like do one leg at a time and then sit down on the plate, because at some point the range of motion needs to stop on that machine. Right? I mean, the pads don't come all the way to the floor or to the pad that is down there. Right? So
yeah,
I would say we like do one foot at a time, like straighten your legs so that you are actually then sitting on that plate, right? And then squeeze your way out or so.
This is how I would envision it. The last time I failed, like properly failed, I think I may have failed like a pull down or a pulling movement or something. But on squats, I just put on like 20 kilos too much not that long ago, and then had to bail out of those. But you can't bail in the same way as on a hack squat. I was just thinking, maybe if you're going to be pushing it to the point of which you may end up doing that, you probably should know that might happen and just have like call someone over to spot you. Or if you're in the bottom there, maybe you can shout at someone in the gym and just be like, help.
Yeah, that's always the best.
I imagine if you're at the bottom and you're in a secure position after a few, like 30 seconds or something, you should be able to push one rep out maybe so you can just get out. But I don't know.
Or bounce, like doing the bounce movement, right? Like bounce, bounce, bounce. And then at some point you should have so much momentum to get out of that once again.
Another question?
Yeah, let's go for one.
Okay. So this is from Ben _Sutherland 8. And he has said, if I am in prep and struggle to maintain performance in the gym, should I reduce weight or volume?
I think the first go-to thing in that regard is actually volume and prep. Depends on, of course, how low you would need to go. If it's something like, I don't know, hamstrings, this is already quite low for many, many people. But it always depends, of course, also if you are then progressing in a fashion of like the volume landmarks where you're adding sets on a weekly basis or so, then you can actually bring it down to a more narrow range of maybe just progressing from like 8 sets to 10 sets, or just maybe keep the 8 sets straight. But overall, I think you can definitely lower it without worrying too much, I think. Because when you reduce the load, and this is also something that many people ask, like, okay, if I'm actually being out of my rep range, should I decrease the load to actually then get onto my target repetitions? Or should I stick with the load and just add another set? And I think that this is the same thing. Keep the load on the bars the same so that the amount of tension is kind of the same still for the muscle group. Because that is, after all, what is probably the most important thing, the certain tension on a muscle group. And then after that, if you are having a meeting that necessary threshold of intensity and tension on the muscle, then something like volume becomes more and more important, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting one because, like you said there, once you've met an intensity threshold, it's a dose response for muscle growth with volume. So you don't really want to, in my opinion, generally, you don't want to sacrifice volume for tension or for load on the bar. But like you said there, you do want to maintain as much loading as you can. And maybe then the answer is, if you're still in your recovery in terms of like you're not over your MRV or you're not at MRV, then you could actually maintain the tension, maintain the load, and add a set like you said there. And I think that's a nice way of making sure that you're getting both ends of the spectrum and you're not kind of doing just one.
Yeah, and it must be said that we are primarily referring to something that is in a reasonable range and realistic approach. It's not like, okay, all of a sudden you're just doing 1 rep maxes. That's not what I'm saying. This is not what I'm referring to when I'm saying that tension is probably the main thing that you need to take care of first, right? But more so in a realistic scenario where we are talking about, okay, you're doing something like 6 sets per muscle group or so, or let's say 8 sets per muscle group for that week. Would it be more beneficial to reduce the load each and every single time that you are in a scenario like this? Or would it be more feasible to actually decrease it by like 1 set or so? And I think that 1 set will probably give you a better outcome in regards to recovery than always decreasing the load, because decreasing the load by 2.5 kilograms would probably not do that much for your overall recovery for the next sessions. Same as with the other way around. For something like hypertrophy, when we are in a gaining phase, adding 2.5 kilograms will probably not give you as much of a hypertrophic stimulus as adding a set. All right, so load progression or load decrease, I think, is something that should always come, not last, but more so should be reconsidered before actually maybe playing with other variables.
Yeah, I guess it's a case of identifying, was the performance drop because you're just in a deficit and your glycogen is depleted and your leverages have changed, and performance sometimes can drop. Maybe just you drop 5 kilos off your bench and then it maintains. Okay, that's one thing. But if it's what you said there in terms of like it's a performance drop because you're over your MRV, then you need to reduce your volume in that case.
And then in that instance, you could always ask the question, are there maybe other avenues I can go down before I'm actually making adjustments to the volume or intensity? Maybe I can get the same stimulus without the fatigue accumulation. And then maybe it's a matter of changing the exercise selection first before we're actually making that trade-off of decreasing the volume or intensity. And this would be my first road, actually.
Cool. Awesome. We're at an hour?
Yeah, hour and 10 minutes.
Close. Oh, wow. Damn. We've oversold.
I mean, I wasn't there last week and Harry took my place and we all know how that went. Yeah. right? So we
Harry
needed
listens
to
this, it's gone.
we actually needed to actually make it a little bit longer so that the people are now once again satisfied and pleased. And everything in the world is going to shit. The stock markets, coronavirus, but we are still here. We are giving you the entertainment and the content that you are looking for. This is Revive Stronger. If you want to have more, go and sign up for the membership site now. $6.99.
And we have 5 tickets left still.
We have 5 tickets left. Yeah, I was on a roll now. Just tunnel vision, you know? Sometimes I'm like that.
What are you taking?
What is it called? Adderall?
Adderall.
Is Adderall not just like for focus? Is it Ritalin? I don't know.
I have no
It's
idea.
Adderall Ritalin, just in a
LSD.
different country. But LSD, I mean, with LSD, I would be completely gone here. I mean, you would have noticed if I was on LSD.
My experience is probably about as strong as Utopia. So I have not gone very far down this route. And on that note, guys, thank you for your questions. Hopefully we got some new Instagram people checking this out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Cheers, guys.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics, discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.